He paid for the alien woman's hot drink, unaware she was a billionaire, desperate for an heir. The blizzard outside howled like a wounded beast, battering the windows of Jack Harrington's tavern with relentless fury. Located on the outskirts of New Avalon, the only human-owned establishment in this sector of the alien metropolis had become something of a curiosity for locals. The Earthen Hearth, as Jack had named it, stood as a testament to human resilience. A warm, wooden anomaly amid the sleek, metallic architecture favored by the Nilarian natives. Jack wiped down the counter with practiced efficiency, his muscular forearms flexing beneath rolled-up sleeves. At 35, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had seen enough of the universe to be impressed but not intimidated. His dark hair was cropped short on the sides but longer on top, and a neatly trimmed beard framed a face marked by laugh lines and the occasional scar. Souvenirs from his previous life as a Federation Marine. The tavern was quiet tonight, unsurprising given the weather. A few regulars huddled around tables, a pair of Krex merchants playing some incomprehensible game with glowing stones, a solitary Valerian pilot nursing what humans would call whiskey, but was actually distilled from some bizarre fungus. The crackling fireplace, an authentic wood-burning one that had cost Jack a small fortune to import, cast dancing shadows across the room's rustic interior. The door swung open suddenly, bringing with it a gust of frigid air and swirling snowflakes. Jack looked up, ready to offer his standard greeting, but the words died in his throat. She was unlike any Nilarian he'd seen before. Tall and gracefully proportioned, with smooth emerald skin that seemed to shimmer under the tavern's warm lighting. Silver hair, now dusted with melting snow, cascaded down her back in elegant waves. Her attire spoke of wealth. An intricately embroidered gown peeked out from beneath a luxurious fur cloak that would have cost more than Jack's entire establishment. What struck him most, however, was her expression, a mixture of curiosity and wariness, as if she'd wandered into some exotic exhibit rather than a simple tavern. The other patrons fell silent, their attention drawn to the newcomer. Even in a city populated by various alien species, this woman commanded attention. She moved toward the bar with fluid grace, each step deliberate yet somehow tentative. Jack noticed she carried herself with the posture of someone accustomed to being observed, her chin held high despite her apparent discomfort. "Welcome to the Earthen Hearth," Jack said, his deep voice breaking the silence. "Nasty night to be out." The woman's eyes, startlingly silver with vertical pupils, regarded him with surprise, as if she hadn't expected him to address her directly. "Indeed," she replied, her voice melodic with an accent that made standards sound like poetry. "I find myself unprepared for your planet's weather patterns." Jack nodded sympathetically. "First winter in New Avalon? Is it that obvious?" A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Only to someone who's seen that look before." Jack gestured to an empty stool. "Please sit. What can I get you?" She hesitated before perching gracefully on the offered seat, arranging her cloak around her. "I am unfamiliar with human beverages." Jack studied her for a moment. Despite her elegant appearance, there was something in her eyes, a weariness, perhaps, or loneliness, that resonated with him. Without a word, he turned and began preparing a drink, mixing several ingredients with practiced hands. The woman watched him curiously, her head tilted slightly. "This is something my grandmother used to make," Jack explained as he worked. "She called it Winter's Embrace, spiced cider with a few secret ingredients. Nothing alcoholic," he added with a wink. When he placed the steaming mug before her, the woman stared at it in apparent confusion. "I haven't requested anything yet," she said, her brow furrowing slightly. Jack shrugged. "Consider it hospitality. You look like you could use something warm." Her slender fingers hovered over the mug uncertainly. "What do I owe you for this?" "Nothing. It's on the house." Her confusion deepened. "On the house?" "It means it's free," Jack explained, unable to suppress a smile. "A gift, if you will." The woman's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. She lifted the mug carefully and took a tentative sip. Her expression transformed instantly, surprise giving way to pleasure. "This is remarkable," she breathed, taking another sip. "I've never tasted anything like it." "Glad you like it," Jack replied, turning to serve another customer who had approached the bar. Throughout the evening, Jack noticed the woman watching him as he worked, her silver eyes tracking his movements with undisguised interest. She nursed her drink slowly, as if savoring not just the beverage, but the atmosphere of the tavern itself. When she finally rose to leave, she approached the bar once more. "Thank you for your kindness," she said formally. "My name is Myra Theron." "Jack Harrington," he replied with a nod. "Stay warm out there, Myra." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, perhaps, at his casual use of her name. "I shall endeavor to do so, Jack Harrington." As she stepped out into the swirling snow, Jack found himself wondering if he'd see her again. Something told him he would. He had no idea just how right he was, or how completely his life was about to change. By midday, Jack knew something unusual was happening. The earthen hearth, typically quiet until evening, had been steadily filling since opening. More notably, the clientele had changed. Instead of his regular working-class patrons, the tavern now hosted elegantly dressed Nilarians, their expensive attire and haughty demeanors distinctly out of place among the rustic wooden furnishings. "Another round of your finest Terran whiskey," called a corpulent Nilarian businessman, his emerald skin a shade darker than Myra's had been. "And tell us again about your encounter with the Theron heiress." Jack sighed, pouring the drinks. "Like I said, she was just another customer. Came in, had a drink, left." This was the fifth such inquiry today. Somehow word had spread that Myra Theron, apparently a name that meant something in New Avalon, had visited his humble establishment. "Just another customer?" A female Nilarian laughed, the sound like tinkling bells. "Do you have any idea who the Therons are?" "They control half the shipping lanes in this sector." Jack shrugged, his muscular shoulders straining against his simple black shirt. "Everyone's equal when they're cold and need a drink." This elicited appreciative murmurs from some and scandalized gasps from others. Jack didn't care either way. He'd left Earth to escape politics and social climbing, not to encounter alien versions of the same. The tavern door swung open, bringing with it a blast of cold air and sudden silence. Jack looked up to see Myra standing in the doorway, this time accompanied by two stern-looking Nilarian males in sleek black uniforms, clearly security personnel. She wore a simpler outfit today, a form-fitting silver jumpsuit that accentuated her slender, yet curvy figure, with a short white jacket that matched her silver hair. Despite the less formal attire, she somehow looked even more regal than before. The other patrons immediately stood, some bowing their heads respectfully. Jack merely nodded in greeting. "Afternoon, Myra." "Same as yesterday?" Her silver eyes widened slightly at his casual tone, but a small smile played at her lips. "That would be lovely, Jack Harrington." As she approached the bar, the other patrons parted like water. Her guards remained at the door, scanning the room with professional detachment. "You've caused quite a stir in my establishment," Jack said quietly as he prepared her drink. "So I've gathered," she replied, taking the seat directly across from him. "I apologize for the disruption." "No need. Business is business." He slid the steaming mug toward her. "Though I am curious why the visit of one person would cause such a commotion." Myra took a sip, closing her eyes briefly in appreciation. "My family has certain standing in New Avalon. It's rare for someone of my position to frequent establishments outside the Central District." "Ah," Jack nodded. "So you're slumming it?" Her eyes flashed. "I beg your pardon?" Earth expression means someone wealthy experiencing how the common folk live for novelty's sake. To his surprise, she laughed, a genuine melodic sound that turned heads throughout the tavern. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" Jack shrugged again. Wouldn't be the first time. Had plenty of rich tourists on Earth wanting the authentic experience before returning to their penthouses. Before Myra could respond, the tavern door burst open again. This time, 5 burly Draxians entered, reptilian humanoids with scaled skin and predatory eyes. Unlike the other patrons, they wore utilitarian clothing marked with scorch marks and crude weapons strapped to their belts. "Well, well," the largest one hissed, his forked tongue flicking between sharp teeth. "Looks like the rumors are true. The Theron princess does slum with humans." Jack tensed, recognizing trouble immediately. His eyes flicked to Myra's guards, who had stepped forward but seemed hesitant to act in such a crowded space. "We're closed," Jack said firmly, reaching beneath the counter where he kept a pulse baton, a souvenir from his military days. Not to us, the Draxian leader sneered, approaching Myra. We've got business with the Theron family. Unpaid debts, you might say. Any legitimate business can be addressed through proper channels, Myra replied coolly, not even turning to face him. The Draxian reached for her shoulder. We prefer direct negotiations. His hand never made contact. In one fluid motion, Jack vaulted over the bar, grabbed the Draxian's outstretched arm, and twisted it behind his back. The move was executed with such speed and precision that the other Draxians barely had time to react before their leader was face down on a table, arm locked painfully behind him. Like I said, Jack growled, applying just enough pressure to make the Draxian wince. We're closed. The other Draxians reached for their weapons, but Myra's guards had finally moved into action, drawing sleek pistols that hummed with energy. Stand down, one guard commanded, by authority of House Theron. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the Draxian leader spat. This isn't over, as Jack released him with a firm shove toward the door. The Draxians retreated, shooting venomous glares at Jack and Myra. As the door closed behind them, the tavern erupted in excited chatter. Jack returned to his position behind the bar, aware of Myra's intense gaze following him. That was impressive, she said quietly. You move like a warrior, not a tavern keeper. Former Federation Marine, Jack explained, wiping his hands on a towel as if nothing unusual had happened. Old habits. Indeed. Myra studied him with new interest. You're full of surprises, Jack Harrington. Their eyes met, and Jack felt an unexpected jolt of attraction. There was something in her silver gaze, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something more primal, that resonated with him on a level he hadn't experienced in years. I could say the same about you, Myra Theron. She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her already beautiful face. Perhaps we should get to know each other better, then. The Draxians returned at dusk, as Jack had suspected they might. This time they brought friends. Jack spotted them through the frosted windows, at least 15 scaled figures moving through the swirling snow surrounding the tavern. He'd already sent most of his customers home after the earlier confrontation, keeping only his most trusted regulars who refused to leave. Your security detail left with the other patrons, Jack said to Myra, who remained perched at the bar. You should have gone with them. She sipped her third cup of spiced cider, remarkably calm. And miss seeing you in action again? I think not. Despite the tension, Jack felt a smile tug at his lips. This isn't a show, Myra. Those Draxians look serious. They are, she confirmed, her silver eyes hardening. The Drax Syndicate has been pressuring my family for months. They want access to our shipping routes for their smuggling operations. And they think threatening you will help their cause? They're not known for subtlety, she set down her mug. But neither am I. Before Jack could question her meaning, the front door crashed open. The Draxian leader from earlier stood in the doorway, snow swirling around him. Last chance, human, he hissed. Hand over the Theron woman, and we'll leave your little establishment standing. Jack moved from behind the bar, positioning himself between Myra and the door. Not happening. The Draxian's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Then we do this the fun way. He raised a clawed hand, and his companions began pouring through the door and windows, weapons drawn. Jack had prepared for this. He grabbed the pulse baton from his belt and activated it with a flick of his wrist. The weapon hummed to life, crackling with blue energy. Stay behind me, he told Myra, dropping into a fighting stance. To his surprise, she moved beside him instead, pulling what looked like an ornate bracelet from her wrist. With a twist, it expanded into a glowing energy whip. I believe the human expression is, I've got your back, she said with a dangerous smile. The first Draxian charged, and Jack moved with the fluid precision of his military training. The pulse baton connected with the attacker's chest, sending him convulsing to the floor. Two more rushed him from different angles. Jack ducked under a wild swing, swept the legs from one, and drove his elbow into the throat of the other. From the corner of his eye, he caught glimpses of Myra, her energy whip slicing through the air with deadly grace, her movements almost dance-like as she disabled attacker after attacker. For someone raised in luxury, she fought with surprising skill. They found themselves naturally working in tandem. Jack would disable an opponent, pushing them into the path of Myra's whip, while she would distract others, creating openings for his more direct attacks. It was as if they'd trained together for years rather than meeting just yesterday. "Behind you," Myra called, and Jack spun just in time to catch a Draxian's wrist before the blade it held could find his back. He twisted hard, hearing the satisfying crack of breaking bone, then shoved the howling attacker away. The fight spilled throughout the tavern, furniture splintering, glasses shattering. Jack's few remaining patrons had either fled or joined the fray. The Valerian pilot was particularly effective, using his 4 arms to grapple multiple opponents at once. The Draxian leader, seeing his forces being systematically dismantled, snarled in frustration. He pulled a small device from his belt, a thermal detonator. "If we can't have her, no one will," he roared, activating the explosive. Time seemed to slow. Jack calculated distances, trajectories, possibilities, all in the split second before his body moved on instinct. He lunged forward, tackling the Draxian leader with enough force to send them both crashing through the front window into the snow outside. They tumbled down the short slope in front of the tavern, the detonator still clutched in the Draxian's hand. Jack slammed his baton into the alien's wrist, forcing him to release the device. It rolled away into the snow, its countdown continuing. Jack scrambled after it, scooped it up, and with all his strength, hurled it high into the empty sky above. The explosion illuminated the night briefly, a miniature sun that sent a shockwave rippling through the air but harmed no one. Breathing hard, Jack turned back to find the Draxian leader attempting to crawl away. One swift kick rendered him unconscious. By the time Jack returned to the tavern, the remaining Draxians were either subdued or had fled. The interior of the earthen hearth was a disaster. Broken furniture, shattered glass, splintered wood. But the structure stood, and more importantly, no one appeared seriously injured. Myra stood in the center of the room, her silver hair disheveled, a small cut on her cheek leaking blue-tinged blood, but otherwise unharmed. Her energy whip had retracted back into its bracelet form. Their eyes met across the wreckage and something electric passed between them. Adrenaline, relief, and something far more primal. "You fight well for a tavern keeper," she said, her voice husky. "You fight well for a princess," he countered, closing the distance between them. "I told you I'm not—" Jack didn't let her finish. His hands found her waist, pulling her against him as his lips claimed hers. She stiffened for only a moment before melting into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body molding to his. The kiss was fierce, hungry, months of solitude and years of carefully maintained control evaporating in the heat between them. Her skin was warmer than a human's, almost feverish to the touch, and she tasted faintly of spices and something alien yet intoxicating. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Jack became aware of the few remaining patrons diplomatically averting their eyes or making hasty exits. "Perhaps," Myra whispered, her silver eyes dark with desire, "we should continue this somewhere more private." Jack glanced around at his devastated tavern. "I think I'm going to be busy with repairs for a while." She traced a finger along his jawline, sending shivers down his spine. "I have rooms nearby, very private rooms." The invitation in her voice was unmistakable. Jack knew he should probably refuse. She was clearly someone important, someone with complications he didn't need in his life. But the way she looked at him, like he was something precious and desirable rather than just useful, broke through defenses he hadn't realized he'd built. "Lead the way," he said softly. As they stepped out into the snowy night, leaving the unconscious Draxians for the local authorities to handle, neither noticed the sleek black vehicle observing from a distance, nor the disapproving eyes watching their departure. Myra's rooms turned out to be an entire floor of one of New Avalon's most exclusive residential towers. The private elevator opened directly into a sprawling penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the snow-covered city below. The interior was a tasteful blend of Nilarian aesthetics, flowing organic shapes and luminescent materials, and more traditional human design elements. "Nice place," Jack said, trying to mask his awe. "Bit bigger than my apartment above the tavern." Myra smiled as she moved to a control panel, adjusting the lighting to a soft amber glow. "A family property. I prefer it to the main estate. Fewer eyes watching my every move." She stepped closer to him, her silver eyes reflecting the city lights. The cut on her cheek had already begun to heal, the blue tinge fading. Jack reached up, gently tracing the mark with his thumb. "You were incredible back there," he said softly. "Not many people can hold their own in a fight like that." "My father insisted I learn to defend myself. He said privilege without capability is vulnerability." She leaned into his touch. "Though I admit, I've never had to use those skills quite so vigorously before." Jack's other hand found her waist, drawing her closer. "Full of surprises, aren't you?" "As are you," she whispered, her breath warm against his lips. Their second kiss was different from the first, less desperate, more exploratory. Jack marveled at the alien yet familiar sensations. Her skin slightly warmer than a human's, the faint scent like exotic spices, the way her silver hair seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. When they parted, Myra took his hand and led him through the penthouse to a spacious bedroom dominated by a large bed that seemed to float above the floor. The city sprawled below them through another wall of windows, snow still falling in gentle swirls illuminated by the twin moons of this world. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of nervousness that humanized her in a way her wealth and status did not. "I'm good," Jack replied, sensing there was something more she wanted to say. "But I get the feeling you might need one." Myra laughed softly, moving to a small bar in the corner of the room. "Perceptive." She poured herself a glass of iridescent blue liquid. "Another quality I find appealing about you." She took a long sip, then set the glass down and turned to face him. "Jack, before we go any further, there's something you should know about me, about why I came to your tavern that night." Jack sat on the edge of the bed, giving her space. "I'm listening." Myra took a deep breath. "My full name is Myra Theron-Vell, heir to the Theron Consortium. My family controls most of the shipping lanes in this sector, along with various mining operations, manufacturing facilities, and technology patents. I gathered you weren't exactly struggling," Jack said with a small smile. "No, not financially." She paced slowly before the windows. "But my position comes with complications. Under Nylarian law, to fully inherit my family's holdings, I must produce an heir before my next Ascension Day, what you might call a birthday. I have just under 3 months." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's specific." "Ancient traditions die hard, especially among the elite." She turned to face him fully. "If I fail to conceive by then, everything goes to my cousin, Terran. He's been waiting for this opportunity for decades. And I'm guessing this Terran isn't the type to run a charity with his inheritance?" Myra's expression darkened. "He would dismantle everything my family has built, sell off the assets to the highest bidders, including those Draxian thugs, and leave thousands without livelihoods. He cares only for immediate profit, not sustainable growth or the welfare of those who depend on us." Jack processed this information, the pieces falling into place. "So that night at the tavern was not entirely coincidental," she admitted. "I had been researching potential mates for weeks. The traditional matchmakers offered only politically advantageous options, men from other elite families with their own agendas. And how did I end up on your radar? I doubt human tavern owner was high on their list." Myra approached him slowly, her movements graceful despite her evident nervousness. "It wasn't, but our medical scans showed something remarkable about human DNA, specifically your DNA." "You scanned me?" Jack asked, not sure whether to be impressed or disturbed. "Standard procedure for all visitors to New Avalon," she explained. "What we discovered was that certain humans possess genetic markers that are highly compatible with Nylarian physiology. You, Jack Harrington, have the highest compatibility rating ever recorded." She sat beside him on the bed, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her. "When I learned this, I was curious. I wanted to see what kind of man you were before approaching you formally. So I visited your tavern expecting, I'm not sure what, but certainly not kindness without agenda." Jack took her hand, studying the subtle differences between her fingers and his. The slightly elongated joints, the faint luminescence beneath her emerald skin. "So that cup of cider was what? A genetic audition?" She laughed, the sound musical and genuine. "I suppose it was. One you passed with flying colors." Her expression grew serious again. "But Jack, I need you to understand. What began as a practical consideration has become something else entirely. When you stood against those Draxians, when you risked your life without hesitation. Jack silenced her with a gentle kiss. I get it. Plans change. Life happens. Her silver eyes searched his. You're not angry? About being genetically compatible with a beautiful, badass alien princess? He grinned. I've had worse news. Myra's relief was palpable. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his, in what he sensed was a culturally significant gesture. There's more you should know about Nilarian biology, about what this means. This time Jack silenced her with another kiss, deeper and more insistent. Later, he murmured against her lips. We've got all night for biology lessons. As moonlight bathed the room in silver, they surrendered to the connection between them, a connection that transcended species, cultures, and the vast distances of space that had once separated their worlds. In those hours, Jack discovered that despite their physical differences, the language of desire was remarkably universal. Later, as they lay entwined in the strange, comfortable bed, Myra's head resting on his chest, Jack gazed out at the alien moons and contemplated how quickly life could change. 3 days ago, he'd been a simple tavern owner, content in his solitude. Now he was potentially the father of the next heir to an interstellar fortune. Credit for your thoughts, Myra murmured, tracing patterns on his skin. Just wondering what happens next, he replied honestly. She propped herself up on one elbow, her silver hair cascading around them like a metallic waterfall. That depends entirely on you, Jack Harrington. Morning came with the gentle chime of Myra's automated systems, bathing the penthouse in simulated dawn light. Jack stirred, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings, until he felt Myra's warm presence beside him. She slept peacefully, her silver hair splayed across the pillow, her emerald skin glowing softly in the morning light. Jack watched her for a moment, still processing everything she'd revealed the night before. Heir to an interstellar fortune, ancient inheritance laws, genetic compatibility. It was a lot to take in for a man who'd spent the last 3 years serving drinks and avoiding complications. His thoughts turned to the earthen hearth. After the Draxian attack, the place would need substantial repairs. He should check on it, assess the damage. As if sensing his thoughts, Myra's eyes fluttered open, silver irises focusing on him with surprising clarity for someone just waking. You're worried about your tavern, she said, her voice still husky with sleep. Jack smiled. That obvious, huh? Your expression becomes more concentrated when you're concerned. She propped herself up on one elbow. We should go there, together. You don't have to. I want to, she interrupted, placing a slender finger against his lips. Besides, I'm partially responsible for what happened. Jack kissed her finger before gently moving it away. Not your fault some scale-faced thugs decided to make trouble. Nevertheless, she sat up fully, the sheet falling away to reveal her emerald shoulders. I've never actually repaired anything before. It could be educational. The way she said educational sent a pleasant shiver down Jack's spine. Well, I wouldn't want to deprive you of a learning opportunity. After a shared shower that took considerably longer than necessary, they dressed and made their way to the private elevator. Myra wore a simple outfit by her standards, a silver jumpsuit similar to yesterday's but with less ornamentation, and a practical jacket that still probably cost more than Jack's monthly earnings. No security detail today? Jack asked as they descended. Myra's expression tightened slightly. I may have neglected to inform my household staff of my whereabouts. Playing hooky from your billionaire duties? Jack grinned. I'm a bad influence already. The worst, she agreed with a smile that made his heart skip. They emerged from the tower into bright morning sunshine, the previous night's snowfall glittering like scattered diamonds. Myra led him to a sleek vehicle parked nearby, a personal transport pod that hovered silently above the ground. Nice ride, Jack commented as they settled into the plush interior. A minor indulgence, Myra replied, inputting coordinates. I prefer to drive myself when possible. It's one of the few activities where I'm truly alone. The pod accelerated smoothly, gliding through New Avalon's morning traffic with automated precision. As they traveled, Jack noticed how Myra seemed to relax incrementally the further they got from the city center, as if shedding invisible constraints. When they arrived at the earthen hearth, Jack's heart sank. In daylight, the damage looked even worse. Broken windows, splintered furniture visible through the gaps, the front door hanging askew on its hinges. "Damn," he muttered as they exited the pod. "Those lizards really did a number on the place." Myra placed a hand on his arm. "It can be fixed." Inside was a disaster zone of broken glass, overturned tables, and scattered debris. The bar itself had survived mostly intact, though several bottles behind it had shattered, leaving puddles of mingled liquor on the floor. Jack moved through the wreckage, mentally cataloging what could be salvaged and what would need replacement. To his surprise, Myra immediately began picking up broken chairs and setting them aside. "You don't have to do that," he said. "Your outfit will get ruined." She looked up at him, a determined set to her jaw. "Clothes can be replaced." And I meant what I said about helping. They worked side by side for hours, clearing debris, sweeping up glass, and salvaging what furniture could be repaired. Jack was impressed by Myra's willingness to get her hands dirty, literally as blue-tinged smudges soon marked her once pristine jumpsuit. "You're full of surprises," he said as they took a break, sharing water from the undamaged kitchen. "Most people of your status wouldn't know which end of a broom to hold." Myra laughed, wiping sweat from her brow and leaving another blue smudge. "I'm discovering I enjoy physical labor. There's something satisfying about seeing immediate results from one's efforts." "Different from corporate boardrooms, I imagine." "Vastly," she agreed. "In business, progress is measured in quarterly reports and market projections. This," she gestured at the partially cleared room, "this is real." Jack felt a surge of affection for her then. This alien woman who could have easily thrown money at the problem, but chose instead to work alongside him. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of several of Jack's regular customers who'd come to help with repairs. They stopped short at the sight of Myra, recognition dawning on their faces. "Is that?" one whispered loudly. "Lady Theron Vell," another confirmed, bowing deeply. Myra straightened, and Jack watched with fascination as a subtle transformation came over her. Shoulders squaring, chin lifting, her entire demeanor shifting from the relaxed woman he'd been working with to someone accustomed to deference. "Please," she said, "that's unnecessary. I'm simply helping a friend restore his establishment." The newcomers exchanged glances, clearly struggling to reconcile the disheveled, work-stained heiress before them with the legendary Theron fortune. As word spread of Myra's presence, more locals arrived, some to help, others simply to gawk. By midday, the tavern was filled with a curious mix of Jack's regular patrons and wide-eyed onlookers, all pitching in under his direction. It was during this impromptu community effort that the first disapproving Nilarians arrived. 3 elegantly dressed males in formal attire that marked them as members of the elite merchant class. They stood in the doorway, surveying the scene with evident distaste. "Lady Theron Vell," the eldest called, his voice carrying over the bustle. "A word, if you please." Myra tensed beside Jack. "Counselor Pren," she acknowledged. "I'm rather occupied at present." "So we see," the counselor replied, his gaze flicking dismissively over Jack. "Your household staff has been most concerned about your absence, and now we find you laboring in a human establishment." The way he said human made it sound like a communicable disease. Jack felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. "The earthen hearth was damaged because of me," Myra replied coolly. "I'm simply taking responsibility." "There are more appropriate ways to provide compensation," another of the Nilarians interjected. "Ways that don't involve the heir to the Theron Consortium, debasing herself with manual labor alongside aliens." Jack stepped forward. "Gentlemen, I appreciate your concern for Lady Theron Vell, but as you can see, she's here by choice. And in my establishment, everyone works or leaves." The counselors bristled at his directness. The eldest drew himself up, fixing Jack with a cold stare. "You presume much, human. Do you have any concept of who stands before you? Of the traditions and responsibilities that define her position?" "I know exactly who she is," Jack replied evenly. "Do you?" A tense silence fell over the tavern. Myra moved to Jack's side, her hand finding his, fingers intertwining in a public display that caused audible gasps from the onlookers. Counselor Pren, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her position, despite her disheveled appearance. I believe you've made your point. As have I. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to continue. The dismissal was unmistakable. The counselors exchanged glances, clearly torn between pressing their case and respecting her rank. This association will be noted, Pren finally said. The Council of Elders will wish to discuss it at the next assembly. I look forward to it, Myra replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. As the counselors departed, murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Jack squeezed Myra's hand gently. You okay? He asked quietly. She turned to him, her silver eyes bright with an emotion he couldn't quite identify. Surprisingly, yes. That's the first time I've ever directly contradicted Counselor Pren. How'd it feel? A slow smile spread across her face. Liberating. Within a week, the earthen hearth was nearly restored. New windows gleamed in the morning light, freshly crafted furniture arranged in familiar patterns, and the polished bar shone with a warm luster. Jack surveyed the work with satisfaction, amazed at how quickly it had come together, though having Myra's resources certainly hadn't hurt. What surprised him more was how she'd continued to participate in the restoration, arriving each morning in increasingly practical clothing, learning to sand wood, repair fixtures, and even mix drinks behind the bar. Her presence had transformed the tavern into something of a local sensation, with customers from all walks of life now mingling in the once quiet establishment. I think we're ready to reopen tomorrow, Jack announced as he wiped down the last of the new tables. Myra looked up from where she was arranging bottles behind the bar, her silver hair tied back in a practical ponytail. Already? It feels like we've only just begun. Jack moved behind the bar, sliding his arms around her waist. Getting attached to manual labor, Princess? She leaned back against his chest with a contented sigh. Perhaps I'm getting attached to the company. Their moment of peace was interrupted by the arrival of Leva, Myra's personal assistant, a younger Nilarian female with teal skin who had reluctantly accepted her employer's new routine. Lady Theronvel, she said, bowing slightly despite Myra's repeated request to dispense with formalities. I bring urgent news. The Council of Elders has called an emergency session for tomorrow morning. Your presence is required. Myra stiffened in Jack's arms. On what grounds? Leva's expression was carefully neutral. Counselor Pren has formally questioned your fitness to inherit. He cites your unconventional associations and behavior as evidence of compromised judgment. Unconventional associations, Jack repeated flatly. That would be me. Among other concerns, Leva acknowledged with a diplomatic nod. Myra turned in Jack's arms to face him. This is Terran's doing. He's using Pren as his mouthpiece, trying to accelerate the process. Can they actually prevent your inheritance before the deadline? Jack asked. Not typically, Myra replied, her brow furrowed. But if they declare me unfit, they could place the holdings in trust until a suitable heir is produced, effectively giving Terran control in the interim. Jack released her reluctantly. Then you need to go prepare. Show them they're wrong about you? Myra searched his face. You're not coming with me? To an alien council meeting where I'm literally the problem? Doesn't seem helpful. On the contrary, Leva interjected, surprising them both. Your presence would demonstrate Lady Theronvel's commitment to her chosen path. The council respects conviction, even when they disagree with the choice. Jack raised an eyebrow at the assistant, who had previously seemed less than enthusiastic about his relationship with Myra. What changed your mind about me? He asked. Leva's professional demeanor cracked slightly. I observed how you treat her, not as the Theron heir, but as Myra, and I've seen how she flourishes in your company. She straightened. The Theron Consortium needs leadership that understands both strength and compassion. You seem to inspire both in her. Myra appeared as surprised as Jack by this endorsement. Thank you, Leva. The assistant nodded briskly. The council convenes at first light. I've taken the liberty of arranging appropriate attire for both of you. She glanced at Jack's work clothes with a hint of dismay. Very appropriate attire. After Leva departed, Jack pulled Myra close again. You sure about this? Taking me to face your elders is a pretty definitive statement. I'm sure about you, she replied simply. The rest we'll figure out together. That night, they returned to Myra's penthouse, both preoccupied with thoughts of tomorrow's confrontation. As they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, snowflakes beginning to fall again in gentle swirls, Jack found himself contemplating how completely his life had changed in just over a week. "Credit for your thoughts?" Myra asked, echoing her question from nights before. Jack turned to her, taking in her emerald beauty against the backdrop of twinkling city lights. "I was thinking about choices, about how sometimes the biggest ones are the easiest to make." She tilted her head questioningly. "What do you mean?" "When I left Earth, joined the Marines, opened the tavern, those all felt like huge decisions. I agonized over them." He took her hands in his. "But being with you, that feels like the most natural choice I've ever made." Myra's silver eyes shimmered with emotion. "Even knowing what it might cost, the Council could make things very difficult for you, for us." "I've never been one to back down from a fight," Jack said with a half smile, "especially not one worth winning." She stepped closer, her body fitting perfectly against his. "And am I worth fighting for, Jack Harrington?" "Every damn day," he whispered before capturing her lips with his. Their passion that night was tinged with a new intensity, a defiance against the forces that would separate them, a declaration of what they'd found together. In the warmth of her bed, surrounded by the soft glow of her alien skin, Jack found himself making another choice, one that crystallized with surprising clarity. Morning came too quickly. As promised, Liba had arranged their attire. For Jack, a formal suit that somehow managed to be both human in style yet acceptable by Nylarian standards. For Myra, a striking ensemble that blended traditional Theron colors with a more contemporary cut. "You clean up nice," Myra commented as Jack adjusted the unfamiliar collar. "Not so bad yourself," he replied, admiring how the formal attire accentuated her regal bearing without diminishing the warmth he'd come to cherish. The journey to the council chambers took them deep into New Avalon's governmental district, a series of soaring spires connected by transparent walkways. Jack noted the curious and often disapproving glances they received from passing Nylarians, but Myra walked with her head high, her hand firmly clasped in his. The council chamber itself was an impressive circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central speaking area. Already present were 12 elder Nylarians in elaborate formal attire, their emerald skin darkened with age to a deep forest green. Seated slightly apart was a male Nylarian who bore a striking resemblance to Myra, though his features were sharper, his expression calculating. "Terran," Myra whispered, confirming Jack's suspicion. As they entered, conversations hushed. Counselor Pren, recognizable from the tavern confrontation, rose to his feet. "Lady Theron Vel," he intoned formally, "you honor us with your prompt attendance." His gaze shifted to Jack, a flicker of distaste crossing his features. "And you bring your companion." "My chosen mate," Myra corrected firmly, causing a ripple of murmurs through the chamber. "Jack Harrington of Earth." Jack stood straight, meeting the counselor's scrutiny with the same steady gaze he'd used to face down hostile aliens across multiple worlds. He might not understand all the nuances of Nylarian politics, but he understood power plays well enough. Terran rose smoothly. "Cousin, your boldness continues to astonish. Bringing a human to the sacred council chambers, truly you exceed all expectations." His voice dripped with false warmth, but his eyes were cold as they assessed Jack. Here, Jack realized, was the true threat, not the traditionalist counselors, but this calculating relative who saw Jack as an obstacle to his ambitions. "The council has been convened to address concerns regarding the Theron succession," Pren announced. "Lady Theron Vel, you stand before us to defend your choices and demonstrate your fitness to lead one of our most prestigious consortiums." Myra stepped forward, her posture impeccable. "I am prepared to address any legitimate concerns the council may have." "Then let us begin," Pren said, his tone making it clear that this would be no mere formality. "With the question of your human mate." The council chamber fell silent as Myra stepped forward, her silver eyes sweeping across the assembled elders with calm determination. "Honored council," she began, her voice clear and steady, "you have questioned my fitness to lead the Theron Consortium based on my choice of mate. You have questioned my judgment, my dedication to our traditions, and my commitment to our legacy." Counselor Pren nodded gravely. These are serious matters, Lady Theronvel. The consortium has stood for 17 generations under proper Nilarian guidance. And what has that guidance achieved? Myra asked, surprising the council with her directness. Wealth, certainly. Power, undoubtedly. But at what cost to those who bear the burden of leadership? She moved to stand beside Jack, drawing strength from his presence. For generations, the heirs of House Theron have sacrificed personal happiness for duty. We have entered strategic marriages, produced heirs on schedule, and perpetuated a cycle that values bloodlines over genuine connection. Theron rose from his seat, his expression carefully controlled. Cousin, these romantic notions are charming, but hardly relevant to the management of our family's holdings. The traditions exist for a reason, to ensure stability and continuity. Stability? Myra laughed softly. Is that what you call it, Theron? I call it stagnation. Jack watched her with growing admiration. This was a side of Myra he hadn't fully seen before, the leader she could be when freed from the constraints of expectation. I have spent my life preparing to inherit a legacy I never chose, she continued. I have studied economics, diplomacy, and management. I have attended every function, memorized every protocol, and performed every duty required of me. She paused, her gaze finding each council member in turn. And in all that time, not once did anyone ask what I wanted. Not once did anyone consider that perhaps there might be more to life than the accumulation and preservation of wealth. What exactly are you suggesting, Lady Theronvel? Pren asked, his tone wary. Myra took a deep breath. I am prepared to renounce my claim to the Theron inheritance. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Theron's careful mask slipped, revealing naked triumph before he could compose himself. Myra, Jack whispered, stunned by her declaration. They hadn't discussed this. She squeezed his hand reassuringly before addressing the council again. However, before you celebrate this decision, Councillor Pren, and you, cousin, I have one final statement to make. With deliberate movements, Myra placed her hand over her abdomen. I carry the next generation of House Theron, a child conceived with my chosen mate, Jack Harrington of Earth. The chamber erupted in chaos. Councilors rose to their feet, voices overlapping in shock and outrage. Theron's face contorted with fury. Impossible, he shouted above the din. A human cannot. Medical scans confirm it, Myra interrupted calmly. The genetic compatibility is unprecedented, but undeniable. I carry a viable heir. Jack stared at her in astonishment. A child? Their child? The revelation left him momentarily speechless. Pren finally restored order with a thunderous command for silence. Lady Theronvel, you present us with a contradiction. You renounce your claim, yet announce an heir. Explain yourself. It's quite simple, Myra replied. I choose love over obligation. I choose a life of meaning over one of mere duty. But I also acknowledge my responsibility to those who depend on the consortium for their livelihoods. She straightened, every inch the leader she was born to be. Therefore, I propose a compromise. I will establish a trust to manage the Theron holdings, with oversight from a council of our most experienced managers. Not politicians, not aristocrats, but those who understand the actual operations of our business. My child will be raised knowing both their Nilarian heritage and their human one, free to choose whether to assume leadership when they come of age. And in the meantime, Theron demanded, who leads? The trust does, Myra answered simply, with quarterly reports to the family and the council. No single person will hold the power to exploit our resources for personal gain. Her gaze fixed pointedly on her cousin. The council members exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. Jack could see the calculations happening behind their eyes, weighing tradition against practicality, prejudice against progress. And you, human, Pren addressed Jack directly for the first time. What do you seek from this arrangement? Wealth? Status? Jack met the counselor's gaze steadily. With all due respect, sir, I was doing just fine before I met Myra. I own my business, I answer to no one, and I sleep well at night. The only thing I want is her happiness. You would accept her renouncing a fortune beyond human imagination? Theron asked incredulously. I'd accept whatever choice makes her happy, Jack replied, though personally I think your family business would benefit from her leadership. In the week I've known her, she's shown more genuine concern for others than you've demonstrated in this entire meeting. Taryn bristled, but before he could respond, the eldest counselor, a female who had remained silent until now, raised her hand. I have heard enough, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Lady Theronvel's proposal has merit. It preserves the consortium while acknowledging the unusual circumstances of the succession. She fixed Myra with a penetrating stare. You truly wish to step away from direct control of your birthright? I wish to live authentically, Myra answered, to build something of my own, with the man I choose while ensuring the consortium continues to thrive and support those who depend on it. The elder nodded slowly. Then I move we accept this compromise with certain conditions to be negotiated regarding the structure of the trust and the education of the heir. To Taryn's visible dismay, the council voted overwhelmingly in favor of the motion. His final objections were noted but overruled, leaving him seething in barely contained rage. As the formal proceedings concluded, Jack and Myra found themselves in a small antechamber, finally alone. Were you planning to tell me about our child? Jack asked, still processing the revelation. Myra's expression softened. I only confirmed it this morning. I was going to tell you after the council meeting, but she shrugged. It seemed like the right moment. So you're really pregnant? We're having a baby? Yes, she said, a smile illuminating her face. Half human, half Nilarian. The first of their kind, as far as anyone knows. Jack pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed by a surge of emotions. Joy, fear, amazement, love. And you're really giving up your inheritance? For me? Not for you, she corrected gently. For us. For the life we can build together. One that isn't defined by obligation or tradition, but by choice. He kissed her then, pouring all his feelings into the connection between them. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers in the Nilarian gesture she'd taught him. So what happens now, princess? Now, she said with a mischievous glint in her silver eyes, we finish rebuilding your tavern. I think I might have a talent for it. 3 months later, the earthen hearth had been transformed. No longer just a tavern, it had expanded to include a small restaurant serving both human and Nilarian cuisine, with a reputation that drew visitors from across New Avalon. Jack still worked behind the bar most nights, but now with a staff of both humans and friendly aliens to help manage the increased business. Myra had proven surprisingly adept at the hospitality industry, her natural grace and unexpected warmth making her popular with customers. More importantly, she seemed genuinely happy, free from the constant scrutiny and expectations that had defined her previous life. The trust managing the Theron consortium was functioning smoothly, with Taryn reluctantly accepting a position that kept him busy but closely monitored. The council's initial skepticism had given way to cautious approval as the arrangement proved both stable and profitable. As they closed up for the night, Jack found Myra in what had once been the tavern's storeroom, now converted into a cozy office. She stood by the window, watching snow fall gently outside, her hand resting on her slightly rounded abdomen. Credit for your thoughts, he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him with a contented sigh. I was just thinking about how a simple cup of hot cider changed everything. Jack chuckled, his hands joining hers over the growing evidence of their child. Best business decision I ever made. For both of us, she agreed, turning in his arms to face him. I came looking for an heir and found something I didn't even know I was missing. What's that? A home, she said simply. Not a house or an estate, but a true home. With you. As they stood together in the warm glow of their rebuilt establishment, surrounded by the life they were creating together, Jack marveled at how the universe worked. A chance encounter, a simple kindness, and now this. A future neither of them could have imagined, but one they would build together, one day at a time. Outside, the snow continued to fall on New Avalon, covering the city in a fresh blanket of possibility.